If she's late.
All right, then I call this meeting of the Projects and Services Committee open at 4 o'clock. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a roll call.
Yes, Vice Chair Brown, she's not here. Director Hubbard,
Present.
Director Josie, present. Chair Brandon,
Here.
we have a quorum.
All right, and then we're going to open up the meeting to public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to comment.
I do not see anybody in the public to comment, and we do have one hand raised here, so bear with me for just a minute. And I didn't receive anything via email, just so everybody knows that. Kelly, are you there? Can you hear us, Kelly? You had your hand raised. Did you want to speak under public comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. Now, last week, some of you may know that there was a hydrogen lunch sponsored by Switzerland's largest tram railway manufacturer, Stadler, and also sponsored by Linde, which is one of the world's largest industrial gas manufacturers, making things such as hydrogen gas. And these vendors and contractors and manufacturers and chemical industry giants, they talked about the wonders of that Valley Link Railroad plan. I'd like to point out some of the misconceptions on the part of the political class about that railroad, that hydrogen proposal. First of all, when I say political class, I mean political class. I don't mean the contractors, planners, designers, because if you read their reports, they are very careful not to make the claim that the 47 acres of solar panels in Tracy are going to generate enough green hydrogen each year to be self-sustaining energy self-sufficiency, the much vaunted, much touted, much hyped goal. That goal is a mirage. It's a lie, because 47 acres of solar panels ain't going to give you enough energy. And if you read the reports that Valley Link has put out, they even admit that much. It's very clear. Secondly, in this report, or what the political class likes to say, they always like to say, you know, we're going to take 80,000 or 100,000 cars a year off the road, off that 580 Altamont Pass. Well, that ain't going to happen. You know why? Because there only are 80,000 or 100,000 cars each day, of commuters. That's the total commute volume per day. So in order to take 100,000 cars a day off the road, you'd have to have 100% market penetration. You would have to have 100% acceptance by the commuters of San Joaquin Valley to get on the train. And that's not going to happen. It's like asking for a baseball player to bat 1,000 at the end of the year. It's not going to happen. They might bat 1,000 for a day or two, but they're not going to bat 1,000 over the course of a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I don't see any other hands raised, and I didn't receive anything via email.
All right, then I will close the public comment section. And we'll move on to the minutes, approval of the minutes from the March 27th meeting.
Move approval, Halbert.
Second, Brown.
Moved by Halbert, seconded by Brown. Oh, and I forgot to say for the record that Vice Chair Brown arrived during public comment. So we have a motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Or we have to do roll call.
Yeah, we do.
It's not here.
Unfortunately, we do. Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Director Halbert,
Yes.
Director Josie.
Yes.
And Chair Branning.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Right. Next up, is approval of the updated public transportation agency safety plan. I believe I'm turning it over to.
Yeah, Mike Tobin, our Director of Operations, will take this, the staff report, this presentation.
I don't know.
I was gonna pop it up.
Well,
I can get started though. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Tobin, Director of Operations here with Livermore Amador Valley Transit Authority. So I am going to be presenting today on the review and update, or annual review and update of our Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. Disclaimer, there's a lot of acronyms, so if you don't know one and I'm throwing it out there, just feel free to interject and I'll let you know what it means. But just some context and some background information on what exactly the PTAP ruling entails and what it is. So this is a FTA ruling that requires all recipients of federal funding to implement an agency safety plan that really enshrines your approach to safety, and it must conform to what are called the SMS standards or safety management system standards. And so this is just a way for us to document how we go about proactively managing any risk and ensuring that, you know, we are being safe. So here's some background information. I'm not going to read through it all, but this ruling was first issued by the FTA in July of 2018. The initial deadline was to have your PTASK completed no later than July of 2021. Our first iteration of the plan was approved by the Board of Directors in 2019, but ever since then, we are required by July to review and update it accordingly based on any new federal regulations that might arise in the meantime. So with the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed in 2021, there were some changes that were made to the ruling. So we did make some of those changes in last year's plan, but then FTA just issued last month another notice of proposed rulemaking, which further clarifies some of the statutory changes outlined in the law and adds some additional requirements. So that's some of what I'm going to go through today. Next slide. So what exactly are the objectives of an agency safety plan? So of course, as I mentioned, it's to really implement a safety management system in a manner that meets our agency safety performance targets and objectives. It's really to help us establish meeting committee structure necessary for LAVTA to ensure that safety information moves up, down, and across the agency, and then also to enforce procedures and requirements that integrate safety into decision-making and operations. And I think those two bullet points are really critical to an SMS because really it's trying to get us to really include our frontline operators into the decision-making process as it relates to safety. So they are out there in the driving the service day in, day out. They are our best source of information and knowledge when it comes to hazards and risks. So really trying to document how we bring them into the decision-making process. It's really key to this plan. Next slide. Okay, might have to click it again. And so just real quick, briefly, there are four kind of pillars or key components of a safety management system. So you have your safety management policy, and this is all included in the PTASK, but your safety management policy really just outlines roles, responsibilities of key staff within the agency. So Christy, as executive director, is our accountable executive and has to sign off on the plan. I am the chief safety officer as director of operations, and it details the different responsibilities. Another key component is risk management. So what is the process by which we are proactively identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks? Of course, safety assurance. So kind of this process of continuous improvement. How are we then going back and validating that our mitigation plans are actually effective or not? And then last but not least, of course, safety promotion. How are we internally kind of cultivating and creating a culture of safety, and whether it's through training, targeted kind of communication with our frontline operators, that sort of thing. So that's all included within the agency safety plan. Next slide. All right, so that's what the PTASK is. What are the changes we made to this year's plan? So again, as a result of the bipartisan infrastructure law and the FTA's notice of proposed rulemaking, they really are wanting agencies to implement safety committees that consist of an equal number of frontline employees and management representatives. So, and then of course, cooperation with frontline transit worker representatives. So we do have a standing safety committee that is comprised of half of bus operators and management staff here, both MV and LAVTA. We meet on a monthly basis. We have a formal agenda, minutes, and we document any resolutions, actions, decisions that are made. So that is all taking place. But again, this is something that we're just formally adding language to the P-task to kind of document, you know, the process for meeting. Another added element that we added to this iteration of the plan is de-escalation training, and specifically putting in place risk reduction programs targeting operator assault. So right now, the industry is seeing quite an uptick in operator assaults. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality. So we here at LAVTA are actually going to start implementing that kind of training into our regular curriculum. Our insurance provider, CalTIP, is actually coming on site next month to provide de-escalation training to our operators, with the hope that this will give them the tools necessary to deal with stressful, high-stress situations and hopefully improve and enhance overall safety and security. Another requirement is for us to document strategies to minimize exposure to unsafe conditions, infectious diseases that are consistent with local health authorities, CDC, or even state. This was actually added in last year's plan, so I won't go into great detail, but it is something that, of course, we are doing especially since COVID-19. And then we have some of these more administrative changes that we did. So, of course, changes in the accountable executive and chief safety officers. That's Christy and myself, respectively. And then also every year we're required to update our safety performance targets based on a 5-year rolling average. So those are in the staff report. That includes fatalities, injuries, safety events, and system reliability. So that was updated as well. Next slide. So I did want to take this opportunity real quick to highlight, we have a new software that we're kind of piloting right now called Track It Transit. Cool functionality for this is an online portal for our employee safety reporting program. So basically we printed out these posters and are posting them throughout the facility, but it allows operators to use a QR code. They scan it. It'll open up this online portal where they can then conveniently submit information regarding hazards that they encounter out on the road. And then it all gets submitted and put into a database where I, as the chief safety officer, can then go through, assess each one individually with the safety committee. And then we can assign an associated level of risk and then a risk mitigation plan to each hazard. So again, just a nice, convenient tool for our frontline operators to be able to communicate with us what they're seeing out on the road. Next slide. So the P-task is currently on the website. We did not print it out. So it's only about 400 or so pages. So if you have some time and some reading, this is the perfect opportunity. But it's there posted on the website. Sorry. And so our recommendation today is that we request the Projects and Services Committee forward the updated Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan to the board for approval. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it to the commission. We have any questions or comments?
I did have one question, and that is in regards to the uptick in the industry in assaults on drivers. Besides de-escalation training, are we doing anything additional to protect our drivers?
Want me to take that?
Yeah.
So de-escalation training is really the first step, I think, because that's something we can do very easy. It's low hanging fruit. We get free training for our insurance provider. So it was just a no-brainer to start with this, have them come on site and empower our operators and give them the tools they need to deal with these situations. We also do have, like the rest of most of the industry now, especially post-COVID, we have operator barriers installed as well, which add enhanced protection for them just in case events arise. Other than that, we are mulling around some ideas, we're working on them internally. We could come back to the board at a later date or even to this committee, and kind of throw some of those options out there for your consideration.
And if I could just add, I think developing a feedback loop with the operators is really key in building that trust with them so that they know when they report something that it is looked at and, you know, take swift action as we need to and follow up. So we are working very diligently to improve our communications with our contractor. And also, we don't need to be shy about enforcing our rider code of conduct and banning passengers who really, you know, who have the inappropriate behavior on the buses. So we're trying to approach this from a 360-degree lens.
As soon as an incident is reported, we will pull footage, send it out, make sure that passenger is, we'll send it to the local PD, make sure they're not riding our circuit on.
But it is an industry-wide issue. It was brought up several times in the conference I was just at this weekend. We may want to look at a different barrier in our newer buses. I think our barriers, I don't know who fabricated them, but anyway, they have nicer, sturdier barriers that we may want to think about installing in our rolling stock moving forward.
Thank you. I have a couple, I don't know if they want to go first, but, okay. I wonder if those barriers were really from COVID to keep air barrier, not so
Yeah,
much
they
a
were.
physical barrier. So 400 pages, thank you for summarizing and answering questions.
Sure.
Is there an agreement between the schools for youth members? Because a youth member, it's difficult to ban them, let's say in transit. Because they're not at their home, they haven't been delivered, or to ban a student, let's just say that's their only way to get home. Or do you have agreements with the schools that we service?
I am not aware that we have agreements with the schools, but most recently we have banned students for up to a week from riding our buses for violations of our policy. It's a little trickier. We have to work with the schools hand in hand. The schools have an obligation to get the kiddos home safely. But I am looking to have a student rider code of conduct form and see if we can incorporate it into registration materials that parents have to sign off on that articulates, you know, certain behavior will or may result in your loss of riding privileges. But we do not have an agreement that I know of, and I'm looking to Tamara here.
Yeah, I like this.
It's the school that bans them. Oh, thank you.
The school will not give us their identification or their
Sure.
parent contact, so the school can't follow the discipline. But the school can also do school discipline on top of banning them from the bus.
So we need, it almost sounds like an MOU with the school or some sort of agreement with the school, if we're not contracting directly with the individual riders. So that, so that it's well documented, any incident that happens, I'd like to see that. And then with regard to safety, I'm just gonna put it under a larger window of safety. Are you in communication with city staff for the safety and plans and so forth? Like if something really, we do have a couple intersections that are tricky and maybe you're not communicating with the bus. Is this something that you've had communication with the city so that there's this open discussion for improvement if it's on us?
Sure. I mean, I can speak from my experience, having only been here for 6 weeks or so, but just to give you an example.
Come on, 6 weeks.
Just tease.
Right. But I know, speaking from experience, we had the tactical improvements along, is it East Avenue? And we were in regular communication with Public Works for the city of Livermore, kind of giving them feedback on safety issues we were encountering. We went out there and did some observations and our planning staff for communication. But so if there's hazards like that come up and the city needs to be involved, 100%, we will reach out to them and as our partners address the issue.
And we do have good relationships with all three cities. We got to Mike Stefano and Cedric. I got some great feedback from Cy and Patush about an issue we're having at the West Dublin BART station where they're going to look into fixing a problem that's existed for 15 years. And then we have our Livermore team. So yeah, we do try to keep those.
Okay, good, because I know we want to provide and support and provide, because we understand, speaking in the city positive, that Wheels is a partnership and this is an important partnership. What about anonymous reporting if somebody has a problem, let's say, with something that they're uncomfortable reporting directly?
Great question. So on that online portal, there is an option to report anonymously.
But online, I mean, that's kind of traceable. Is there a paper way or?
We do provide a paper-based form. So again, we want more options than,
Okay,
so we do have a paper-based form so that you can do the online portal, paper. or just bring it up in the safety committee or somehow, that's not anonymous, but those are just the different ways they can report hazards.
What about verbal assault? So obviously physical assault is one thing, threats. And I know students can, and so can adults, begin to start a verbal assault. What do we do then? Is it the same process that you would have?
It is the same process. We had
Because a
a
physical
student,
assault is pretty different than a verbal assault, but
It is.
still.
I don't think a verbal assault has the same, carries the same discipline as a physical assault, but we had a student that called a bus driver a derogatory name, and we were able to identify that student working with the, and it is important because this affects the bus driver's day, their well-being, whether they like to drive for us, and so we want to keep them feeling supported, and we want to nip that in the bud, but absolutely verbal assaults, eating and drinking, we've had an issue with slushies on the buses and potato chips and just, it's a run-of-the-mill, so, we have all sorts of different issues on the buses. We had a passenger spitting this weekend, who was just spitting in the back of the bus, not on the operator, but it's
We've
a
got
whole
a
gamut.
long list, hopefully not 400 pages of what not to do on a bus. And then students versus adults, they're different discipline program because adults are stronger and more intimidating sometimes than a student.
Not currently, it is just a rider code of conduct.
It's a general policy.
Yeah.
Okay, but then when you, maybe if you were to work out something with the schools, you might find there's a slight difference, whether there's a warning before barring completely or something like that. Okay, all right. And then lastly for me, special needs riders. Is there anything that's sort of different for our IDD riders or for somebody that just has a little bit more of a challenge coming and going, or are they all the same?
Well, we do sensitivity training for our operators. I'd have to talk with our general manager to see what she communicates. Is there anything?
Okay.
Because you're right, there is, for some adults or persons with special needs, you have different behaviors that are,
Right.
that we need to be sensitive to.
So if you're in a lockdown in a wheelchair, for example, you might be more demanding of a driver than you would be if you're just a student, you get on, you sit in the back of the bus. So, so that communication, I just want to make sure that it's appropriate for the needs of the rider.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you. That's all. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. And Commissioner Halbert?
Not so much a question, but more a comment or request. I would appreciate it if we could have like periodic review, 6 months or annual, or as needed if we experience if we experience any problems with safety. Again, I know I've heard that we've had some, but let's just keep an eye on the metrics. If we could just have an understanding that staff would keep us apprised of anything that happens on our buses. I know we do, but in light of this safety plan, if we see any changes to safety, keep us apprised.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then my only real question is, with the online portal, it's already up and running, right?
Yes, it is.
And are you seeing good usage of it? Are we getting good feedback, or is it?
So we just had our monthly safety meetings last week where we announced it, and MB was actually kind enough, they're offering for every verified hazard that's reported and verified, they will get a $10 gift card, just to kind of incentivize them to use the system. I have not checked. I should have done that prior to coming to the meeting, but when I was in the safety meetings and they learned about this tool, there was definitely some interest in using it. So,
Yeah, well, first month is, really getting going, but yeah, I would love to hear back at some point along with kind of what Commissioner Hubbard said, an update on, how it's going and
sure.
what improvements were needed on that. And then just a general comment, kind of looking at the info that was provided with the packet. It seems, I know we had a recent incident, but it does seem like we're still a relatively safe system. We're not seeing a lot of incidents in the LAVTA system. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In terms of preventable accidents, it's definitely, it's right in the middle. I would say.
Perfect.
Sure.
And then, oh, you have something?
I'm just gonna make a motion.
I need to open up to public comment first.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, public comment?
So I didn't get anything by email from anybody. Is there any attendee that would like to speak? Raise your hand, please. I don't see a hand raised and there's nobody here in the audience to speak.
Then I'll close public comment. Now's your chance.
I would like to make a motion that we move staff recommendation to the board of directors for the PTA SP document of 400 pages.
I'm happy to second.
Okay, sound good? And then we need a roll.
Sure, Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Director Halbert,
Yes,
Director Josie,
Yes.
Chair Brennan.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, sounds great. Next on our agenda is a preview of the upcoming project and services committee agenda items.
I'll take this item. For the month of June, you'll have 2 agenda items. We will be bringing you an update on our Wheels in Motion service plan. So this is the name of the sort of the BART restructuring schedule change that is necessitating us to take another look at our service. And so we are hard at work coming up with different service scenarios, and so we'll bring you an update there. In addition, you'll have a Clipper Start program extension. This is your low income fare program. This is administered by MTC, where we offer a 20% discount on our fares. And so MTC is encouraging operators to go to 50% discount, which I do think that's a much more meaningful discount rather than 20%, which really is only 40 cents off your bus fare. So we will be bringing that to you with the recommended action. Typically, your July meeting is canceled, as is your August board meeting, so we are still being respectful of that. And in August, you will hear an update on your fixed route customer satisfaction survey. Surveyors are out in the field right now, talking to students and riders and collecting information. And this will be also very helpful in our service planning effort. And I can take any questions.
Any questions?
So is August not canceled yet?
August committees will be held. Those are at the end of the month. But the board meeting, my understanding is that is the typical, we typically cancel the July committee and the August board. So we would be bringing that to you for action probably at your July
Thank you.
board meeting.
Any other questions? All right, and I believe there's no action from our part on this.
Not at all.
Sounds good. Next up is matters initiated by committee members. Do we have any matters initiated? No, okay, I have none either. Any from staff? Okay. I don't know. Other bodies are.
Yeah, welcome, welcome. We've been looking forward to your joining, and Chrissy's been talking you up.
Yeah, it's great.
Sounds good. Then our next meeting is scheduled for June 26th, and we adjourn at 4:28.
Are all the clocks the same, right?
great job.